Hey guys, even without meaning to, I know this video is going to upset people. This is a very controversial topic. We have Itachi Uchiha versus Pain, and how that fight would go. Who would win if they duked it out, if they were throwing fists? And this was a matchup that I was thinking about quite a bit before making this video, and I kept going kind of back and forth with different results. Unfortunately, you're going to have to bear with me a little bit on this video because a lot of the scenarios here are kind of what if scenarios, because unfortunately we just don't know in full detail how a lot of their abilities would match up against each other. Unfortunately, we don't have too much that we can kind of scale them from their specific feats that we see in the show. The closest that I came to in terms of finding a connection between the two of them was that in part 1 of Naruto, we know that Itachi talks about being wary of Jiraiya, that if he and even if others joined him and Kisame, that it would be a mutual, double knockout type of thing. They would take each other out. That is kind of hard to believe that if there was more Akatsuki members, they couldn't beat Jiraiya, especially since we saw that a younger Itachi was able to effortlessly beat Orochimaru, who at this time should be, even if we want to say Jiraiya is stronger with Sage Mode, should be relative to Jiraiya. So you would think that maybe Itachi is just kind of trying to talk Kisame down because we know Itachi's true intentions. He doesn't want to really throw hands with Jiraiya, so he's kind of trying to find a backdoor escape from having to really kind of go all out, which is totally fair. But if we were to say that that was true, we obviously see Pain be able to actually beat Jiraiya, meaning that's a point in Pain's category. We see that Pain loses to Sage Mode Naruto. Once again, though, with a few asterisks there, that wasn't a total, one-on-one fight. We had interference from people like Hinata. So, yes, at the end of the day, she just got herself killed, essentially. But it did kind of awaken, Naruto's rage. At that time, Naruto was beaten dead to rights. And then Itachi versus Sasuke isn't really a feat either, because we know that there was some holding back going on by Itachi. So it's really hard to kind of gauge just how strong Itachi is in this fight. To get it out of the way really quickly, you could also throw in an argument that Pain doesn't seem like the type of person that would allow someone in the Akatsuki to be there that's stronger than him. He seems to be kind of needing the self-assurance that he can handle anyone in this group if they try and rebel. So in Pain's mind, I definitely think that he thinks he's stronger. The issue is that Itachi brings a lot of hacks abilities to the table. And what I mean by that is, regardless of how this fight goes, I think, and let me know if you guys agree with me in the comments here, I think Itachi will have a better chance of beating someone who's stronger than Nagato than Nagato himself would, if that makes sense. I think that Itachi can beat opponents that are on paper that are stronger than him because of his hacks abilities. Yes, Pain does have some, and I'm going to be interchanging between Pain and Nagato the whole video. Yes, they have some hacks abilities, but it's not as broken as Itachi's. Itachi has an invincible shield and an invincible sword that's a one-hit kill move that will work on pretty much everyone in the series other than the god tier type of characters. So it's an interesting matchup, I would say. Now, lots of people might be thinking, well, Jack, you're talking about Itachi just having broken hacks of powers. Of course he just takes the W. I'm not quite sure, though, because Itachi's hacks abilities seem to get countered quite heavily by Pain. And this is what I mean. If we come to the conclusion that we might think Itachi loses to Pain, which I'm not saying we think that yet, that would also mean that Itachi could also potentially beat people that are stronger than Pain. It's just that Pain is a hard counter. And that's what we're going to explore in tonight's video. If you can't already tell, if you haven't watched any of my other videos, these are entirely non-scripted. I have an idea in my mind of where I think this fight goes, But I'm just here talking the shit, talking and coming to my own conclusions as we kind of go, as I gather my thoughts on it all. So if you want real kind of unadulterated, just raw material, this is the channel for you. With everything in today's climate of being heavily scripted, heavily AI, I wanted to bring a little bit more individuality to my process of making YouTube videos. But let's get on with it. That's enough of an intro. That's enough of the table setting done. Let's get into the meat and potatoes on this video about how their powers would work against each other. I think the main point of contention is, would Itachi's genjutsu work on Pain? Now, in this fight, we're going to assume that they're in an arena and that Itachi's standing on the left side and Pain is standing on the right side with his 6 paths of pain. Nagato is off in a building somewhere, goddamn, sipping pina coladas, goddamn, reading manga with Conan for all we know. But it's the 6 paths versus Itachi, and we'll see how that goes. We'll touch on Nagato at the end, and we might touch on kind of Edo Tensei Itachi as well. But Itachi's genjutsu. We know that Pain can be affected by genjutsu. We see this by being affected by the Toad Song, which is an auditory genjutsu that works through sound. But is Pain immune to visual genjutsu? We know that the Rinnegan is an extension and an evolution of the Mangekyo Sharingan. Now, we know that people with the Sharingan can cast genjutsus on each other. We know that they have a higher resistance, though, to visual genjutsu. The question is, though, I don't necessarily think it's much of a... I reckon Itachi would be able to use a genjutsu on Nagato. The issue is that it just probably won't work on the paths of pain. The reason I say this is because to cast a genjutsu, you need to inject your own chakra into someone else's body. Now, these paths are corpses. They're controlled through the chakra rods in their body that is being utilized through Nagato's chakra. Meaning, Itachi can't just use his visual genjutsu to inject his chakra into one of the paths because they don't possess any chakra. Question, hypothetical, and this is what I got into in the beginning. There's going to be a lot of kind of what-if scenarios like this. Would Itachi be able to inject his chakra into the chakra rods to then kind of trace that all the way back to the puppet master, Nagato? There's a question. There's a school of thought that we might be able to go down, because logically I could see that would work. If that is Nagato's chakra, and we know that Nagato is seeing through the path's eyes through to their shared vision, if he's seeing the Mangekyo Sharingan and then that is then injecting itself into Nagato's chakra, which is on the chakra rods, could it get into Tsukiyomi and, you know, trap Nagato in a genjutsu? For the purposes of this video, I'm going to say that it can. However, don't turn off just yet. However, I will also say that would be ineffective in my mind. Because Itachi would have to cast this Tsukiyomi through chakra that isn't in Nagato's body directly, it means that Nagato could also then just, you know, turn that chakra off by a snap of his fingers. That was a horrible snap, Jack. There we go, a bit better. Because what Nagato is expressing his chakra to the paths, meaning if one of those paths have been infected, one of those chakra rods in the path have been infected, Nagato can just take that chakra back and not utilize it. And I think that would cancel out the Tsukiyomi. And if it didn't count, if it even affected Nagato, he could then just turn that chakra off and be immune to any sort of damage from it. Now, yes, it alters time, so maybe Itachi could do some damage in that split second. But with all these what-ifs, I think it's a very plausible defense for Nagato just to turn his chakra off. And I'm willing to give that to him, that he would therefore be immune to the Tsukiyomi. Now, by extension, that is also being immune to the Izanami technique. So Itachi is not going to be able to to paralyze any of the paths, which is going to be important because he's going to have to specifically get around a couple of them, which we'll get into. But if Itachi was facing Nagato himself, that Tsukuyomi could very potentially work, and then Itachi could just get the W on Nagato. But that's a different beast. Nagato uses these paths for a specific reason. There is certainly power in numbers. Through anime, we're always led to believe, quality over quantity. But in this case, with so many paths, it does make the fight difficult for Itachi. If we can believe that Tsukuyomi and his normal genjutsu and Izanami wouldn't work on the paths, what other options does Itachi have to fight? Unfortunately, not much. His ninjutsu is being completely cancelled out by two of the paths. By the Diva path, being able to use the Shinrei Tensei to blow it away, and by the Praetor path, being able to absorb the ninjutsu. Meaning his genjutsu is cancelled out, his ninjutsu is cancelled out, half of, not even just half, his Amaterasu is also being taken out. We see that through both Shinrei Tensei and Chakra Absorption, that can be cancelled out that way. So nearly over half of his Mangekyo Sharingan is being taken out. His Genjutsu and Ninjutsu is being taken out. That leaves him with Taijutsu, which I wouldn't put money on with the 6 paths of pain. This is where things like the Azura path could cause to be a problem. The mechanical body, the enhanced strength could prove an issue for Itachi, but then also the numbers game here. They also are carrying, they can summon the black rods, meaning they're also doing piercing damage if one of them gets to him, and potentially shutting Itachi's chakra down if one of them's even able to get a glancing blow on him. The shared vision that all 6 of them possess, it makes Taijutsu really, really not plausible, for a lot of combatants to go up against the paths. Naruto's a little bit of an exception because his physical abilities are enhanced so much. Itachi doesn't have that going for him. As strong as he is being an Uchiha, he's not a might guy. He's not kind of blitzing them all with just brute strength and speed. So his taijutsu is even being cancelled out by pain, which leaves only one scenario, activating his Susanoo. Now, this by itself also proves to not be as effective as it would against someone else. For instance, if we said that Sage Mode Naruto was stronger than Pain, I think that Itachi's Susanoo would be able to beat Naruto as soon as he learned Sage Mode. In that fight against Pain, if Naruto was fighting Itachi, I think Itachi would win if he was going for the kill, because of the combination between the Yaramira and the Totsuka Blade. Against Pain, though, that's not as cut and dry, because the Praetor path wouldn't be able to absorb any of the... he wouldn't be able to absorb the Totsuka Blade, but the Shinrei Tensei ability from the Deva path would most likely be able to push the Totsuka Blade away by the repulsion power. And if he couldn't push it away, he could probably use the attraction power to pull Itachi out of the Susanoo. Quite similarly to what we see with Gaara against Madara, where he uses the sand at Madara's feet to pull him out of the Susanoo. Meaning, Itachi might lose a lot of his defenses quite quickly, and even if he's able to get the Susanoo back up, it might not be quick enough for the other paths not to just blitz him and take him out, which would be a huge problem. Now, there might be some ways that Itachi can get around this. Keep in mind that at this stage in the fight, they probably have the Ashura path firing missiles at Itachi Susanoo, and the animal path summoning the, titanic different monsters that they can summon at will, meaning the numbers advantage will be even worse against Itachi. I don't think we've ever seen him be able to do a full 360 Yatamira. Whenever we've seen it, it's always just been one facing. So if the animal paths get around him with his summons, it could be GG already there. But what could Itachi do? He needs to get rid of specifically the Diva path first. Now, with the 6 paths, The Naraka path, I believe that's what it's called, the one that can revive the other paths, that's totally irrelevant. Itachi can just totally ignore him because we've already established, the only way that Itachi is going to be able to fight is through his Totsuka blade, meaning that's sealing them anyway. So that path he can just leave. The only thing that's bringing to the table is more visual eyesight for Pain. The animal path and the Ashura path are some offensive things that could prove troublesome, but I think that Itachi would be able to deal with. And the human path, I don't think would be proved much of an issue because they would have to get through Itachi's Susanoo and up close and touch him. So the main issue is the Preta path and the Diva path. Out of the two of them, even though they both can block against things like Amaterasu, the way that the Diva path can block against the Totsuka blade, he needs to go out first. Meaning, could Itachi potentially... You see, I was even going to say, could he potentially sacrifice his eye with Izanagi to create an opening to then take out the Deva path? But he would then not be able to activate his Susanoo, which would be a problem. And Genjutsu, which is his main weapon, is still not working on them. So he can't even use Izanagi to create an opening to get rid of the Deva path. Maybe if he was able to blitz... let's do two what-if scenarios here. Because that's going to be the aim of this video. If Itachi were to catch Nagato unaware through possessing these sacred treasures and be able to go in and blitz the Deva path, even if you wanted to say that he used Tsukuyomi, Nagato cancelled it out, but in that brief second, Itachi was able to create an opening, even though that's contradicting what I said earlier. Let's say he can do something like that. He blitzes the Deva path and seals the Deva path away. There's still some problems in this fight. Because we know that Itachi is going to run out of stamina quicker than Nagato is. Nagato, being an Uzumaki, has immense amounts of chakra, which Itachi just can't replicate. Itachi is also sick at this time, meaning it's not something that he can withstand for any long period of time. So even facing 5 others, where they can only use, it's kind of at a stalemate. They can't have anything that's really going to damage Itachi, but they can keep their distance with things like the, what would you call it? The things like the artillery from the Ashura path and the animal summons. They keep their distance and just keep chipping away and chipping away and chipping away until Itachi runs out of strength. And if he drops his Susanoo to try and to conserve energy, to conserve chakra, he's going to just get overwhelmed by the numbers game, since his ninjutsu and genjutsu is just being taken out. So maybe you could argue that he could use Amaterasu on the paths that can't absorb it, like the Preta or the Deva. But I reckon they would be, whichever one it is, even the Preta path could just quickly jump to one of them and absorb it. So even if he was able to take down the Deva path, I think the Pain is just being able to beat him. Now, with this, we don't need to talk about the scenario if he just can't take the Deva path down immediately, because then he even has less of a chance of winning. So I can't believe I'm saying it with so much certainty, but I do think that Pain is not stronger, but would have beat Itachi in a fight. Now, I'm not trying to sound like a broken record here, but I want to get this point across. Even though Pain, I think, beats Itachi, I do think that Itachi would be able to beat people that Pain just couldn't beat. Pain is just such a hard counter to Itachi that it's not even funny. I do think that he's just a hard stomp and that he would win it quite honestly without all that much difficulty. I'm not saying that it would be a total stomp, but I do reckon he would be, if they had 10 fights, he would be winning majority of them, if not all of them. And I think it would be just a little bit of a struggle, and then he's just able to wear Itachi down and then kill him. Now, I don't know if that's going to get me wildly flamed in the comments. Itachi is probably my favorite character in Naruto, so I do get all the love for him. But let's go. We won't explore it too much, but let's look at Edo Tensei Itachi. That's a different beast because he isn't being restricted through chakra and stamina. He can just keep going and going and going. He can go all night long. So how would that go up against the Paths of Pain? What would be different? One thing that would be different is that he can spam things like Izanagi. Now, if he can spam Izanagi, he has more of a chance of being able to... and I'm blanking there. He can, technically speaking, just spam Izanagi and Izanami, correct? I know that in the fight against Kabuto, he doesn't get the eyesight back, but surely he would eventually, thanks to being a reanimation. That's an interesting question. I'm very curious about what people think of that. I don't see why he wouldn't be able to just use it as much as he wanted to. If he could do that and he could take out the Deva path quite quickly thanks to the surprise of the Izanagi, which I don't think Pain would have much knowledge on, then I reckon it goes in Itachi's favor because he can then contend with Nagato and the Paths of Pain through the immortal stamina and chakra. So he would eventually get the better of the paths once the Deva path got removed. If he couldn't be removed, I think it might be a very similar type of struggle where being bombarded by massive village-destroying Shinra Tenseis and planetary devastations and being bombarded with missiles and animal summons, there might be an option where the human path could sneak in and take his soul to seal him. That, I reckon, could definitely be another win for Pain there, even with the Edo Tensei. So I think that if he can spam Izanagi, he would definitely get the win there. Because even if he said something like he tried to play against the Deva Path's time delay in his bursts of repulsion, the Praetor path is also there to back up the defense of the team. And then the Animal and Ashura path create enough diversions through their attacks for the Shinra Tensei to charge back up again. So the Deva path needs to be taken out immediately. And I think the only way he can do that is if he can span something like Izanagi. Now, let me know down in the comments if I'm missing a bit of lore that was dropped that wasn't possible. I don't see why it wouldn't be at all, since they have immortal bodies. But please, I'm open to be corrected there. At the end of the day, with the actual characters Itachi and Pain, I think that Pain gets the win there. I don't know if that's controversial. Maybe if we could have seen full potential Itachi that didn't have a sickness to begin with, and also, continue, because he was quite young and continued to grow and grow and grow, maybe then he would gain some extra abilities and be able to get the W. But for what we see in the show, I'm giving this victory to Pain. One of the most underrated villains in the entire show in terms of power specifically. But if you've liked this video, make sure to like, share, and subscribe. It has been a joy being able to talk about two of my favorite characters in Naruto. But have a lovely night, everyone.